I hope I am audible to all. Can someone please confirm?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thanks. All right. So as you all know, that today is the end-sem revision session. So what we have planned for today's session is we have handpicked a few of the questions from the graded assignments, from the practice assignments, or from the previous quiz or end-sem exam papers. So we have a set of around 30 questions that we are planning to go through in this session that covers widely each of the concept or each of the week guess in much details that is required for you. So that is going to be our plan today. In case someone has any doubt right now, you may ask it right now. Else we'll just start walking you through that paper that we have created for today's session. Okay, it's complete silence. So I assume that there are no doubts as of now. All right, so we will probably start with a question paper that we have prepared, and in case you come up with any doubts in the mail, you can probably post them. So Narendra, would you like to start?
Yeah, sir. Thanks. I'll share my screen. So these are the questions we are going to discuss today. So I'll start with the question number 1. So in the question number 1, we have a array X, and if you can see that we are using spread operator on X. So what is spread operator does? It will spread the array in the elements. So it will copy all the elements in the X and then put it inside the Y array. So the Y will become 1 to 9. Okay, so Y is the array from the numbers 1 to 9. So now if we'll go to the statement number 3, so we'll have to find the value of Z. So as the name suggests, the filter method on an array Y will filter the elements from the array based on some conditions. So you pass a callback function inside the filter function, and you put some condition inside the callback function as a return value. So whenever the callback function will return true, that element will be filtered, like it will be stored in some array. So filter function will always going to return a array. So if you this condition says that if the real number is if the number is even, then the return value will be true. So it will filter all the even numbers and store it inside a array. So the result will be something like 2, 4, 6, and 8. 2, 4, no, 8, yeah. 2, 4, 6, and 8. So this will be the result of this filter function, and then if you see the statement after that, so this is a array, and on this array we are like applying a map method. Map method is also a method on the array which will map the elements to some other elements based on the condition, based on the return value of the callback function. So inside the map, you can see that there is a callback function I which maps to I square. So what map will do, it will convert this array which we have got from this filter method to the like it will square all the elements 4, 16, 36, and 64. And then comes the reduce function. The reduce method is also a method on the array, which will reduce, as the name suggests, it will reduce the array and return a number. So how this function works? So it takes a callback function, and the callback function will take two arguments. The first argument will be the previous value, and the second argument will be the current value. The current value means if you are on the nth iteration on the array, then the current value will be the nth value of that array. Like if you are on the first iteration, the current value will be 4. If you are on the second iteration, the current value will be 16, and so on. And a is the previous value. Previous value is the return value of the previous iteration. Like if you are on the second iteration, and if your the first iteration is returning 4, then the previous value will be 4. And a is the initial value. If you don't have the previous value, like in the first iteration we have not done anything, so we don't have the previous value. So you can assign a default value as the initial value in the second argument of the reduce function. So here the initial value is equal to 0. So for the first iteration, the previous value will be 0 and the current value will be 4. So for the first iteration, it will be 4, and then for the second iteration, the current value will be 4 and the previous value will be 4 and the current value will be 16. So in the second iteration, the value will be 20, and then in the next iteration, what will happen? The previous value will be 20 and the current value will be 6. So the answer will be 36. So it will be current value will be 36 and the previous value will be 20. So it will be 56. And the fourth iteration, the current value is 64 and the previous value is 56. So 56 plus 64 is equal to 120. So answer is 120. Is there any question?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Fine.
Sir, in this, I is the current value, right?
Yeah, I is the current value.
Okay, sir.
And A is the previous value. And previous value is the.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's look at the second question. So in the second question, if you see, so we have a markup, we have a div with ID app, and we have a variable message and a script. The script is app.js. So here, if you see, we have a data object with the property message, and we have an options object with the EL attribute, EL option app, and the data option equal to data object. That is, this will be copied here. That's not. That is the data option will be. I mean, if you like remember from the last sessions, so this is the options object, and inside the options object we define various options. So the first option is EL, that is where this element is going to be mounted. So this element, the template for this element will be mounted on the element which has the ID app, and we have the data option here, and we have an app. So in the view, inside the view constructor, we are passing this options object. So, and what is asking? Oh, okay. So app.new message is equal to welcome to IITM online degree. So what will be the rendered by the browser? So can anybody, if you guys want to answer, you can answer this question. And what will be rendered? Is anybody interested in answering the question?
Can you go a little bit up?
Okay.
Oh, it will throw the error because there is no element called new message in your.
There is no method defined.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
property object.
Yes. So it will try to find a data property new message, but if you see the data property, there is only one property, the data option, there is only one property, message. So it will throw an error. So the option C is correct. So E tag and if match. Which of the following are correct regarding E tag and if match? So request header.
No, sir.
Okay. So E tag, you can think of a E tag as identifier of the version of a resource. Like by the resource, so any data inside the database or any data is stored on the server, which can be identified by a URI. URI is like a resource. So you identify each resource by a URI. So each resource, and you can like apply the CRUD operation on the resources. So once you update the resource, the version of the resource will be changed. You get my point? So let's say you have a user resource, and if you update some entry of that user, the user has changed. So you have, in some sense, you have changed the version of the resource. So E tag identifies the version of a resource. Once you change the resource, you assign a new E tag value to the resource. When you create a resource, you assign a E tag value, that is, this is the version number 1 of this resource. And once you modify the resource, you change the version of the resource, that is, you assign new E tag value for that resource. So E tag identifies the version of the resource. So E tag is a response header to validate the current version of a resource. So if you have a version for a resource, then you can like validate whether this resource is current or not. So the option A is correct, and E tag is a string of ASCII character placed between double quotes, and this is just how you like define your E tag value. And I'll tell you about the if match request header. So what happens? So every resource has a version number, and if you will send a if none match request header with the request, and the value of the if none match request header will be the E tag value. So in some sense, you are when you are making a request, you are sending the version number of the resource which you want to get. So the once the request reaches to the server like verify the version number. Let's say you have a resource which whose version number is 2, and you are sending a request for the resource with the version 1. So if you have send the E tag value with the if match in the if match header, in the if match request header, then it will check whether it matches the version number. If both the version numbers are same, then it will send the response. Otherwise, it will not send the response. Is it clear?
Yeah, if match is clear, sir. E tag need to see again.
Yeah, E tag. You just think of E tag as a string, which represents the version of a resource.
Okay.
Okay, and if you are sending and it is the if match and if none match, these are two request headers. These are like very helpful in when you are using the caching. Let's say you have cached some resource on your browser. Okay, and so if you have cached a resource, then this resource has a version number with it. So when you are making a request, so you can like assign this version number with this if none match header, and it will go to the server with a version number. And if the version number has not changed, it will send the response that the version number has not changed. The current resource which you have is still relevant. You don't need you don't need the resource, because you already have the resource. If the version number has changed, it will send it with the body. So you can like reduce the payload.
Okay. So it is to be used together. You take tag and if match
Yeah,
or use simultaneously.
yeah.
Clear, sir. Now got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So consider the following view application with the markup index.html and the JavaScript file app.js. So we have a index.html div ID is equal to app. So we have a div with ID app, and it has the style attribute color is equal to white, and we are also binding the style with the div style. So we need to go and check what is the div style. So it will be inside the data option of the view constructor. Okay, here is the div style. So div style has the background color red, padding 20, and font size 2 EM. And you also have a style color white. So now what will be the color? So the color will come from this color white, because we don't have anything, we don't have color in the div style. So color will be white. What will be the background color? The background color will come from the div style. So background color is red, and the font size is 2M. So the option A is correct. So this was a pretty straightforward question.
Sir, I have a doubt in the
Yeah.
previous question.
Yeah.
Sir, if we have had another CSS with div style, then which one would be implemented? For example, if in a CSS file we have had background color to be, say, green, then red would be applied or green?
I mean, where you have, like, it depends on the priority. Like it's now the mad one question. The cascade. Like how the
Sir?
browser. I mean,
Sir, I think, sir, this style will apply that one coming from the view instance, because this is going to be inline, and that will be external. The priority of inline is greater.
If it's external, then this will have the like higher preference. Because
Okay.
Yeah.
So the same rules will apply.
Yeah. It's
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Consider the following view application with markup index.html and JavaScript file app.js. So we have a div with ID app, C directive 1. So here is the directive 1 and the message and button, and here is the directive 2. So with the text click app.js. So let's go to the question. So if you want to toggle between the presence of T element on click of the button element, what will be the possible value of directive 1 and directive 2? Okay. So directive 1, you want to toggle this T element. So what will be the possible value of directive 1?
So V if.
Yeah, V
And
if.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah. So the V if is the directive, and you have to like answer what will be the value of this corresponding directive. So if you go
Beyond
to
scene.
scene is also there. So data property scene. So if the scene is true, then that will be rendered. Otherwise, it will not be rendered. So B if is equal to scene. That is clear. Now, if you go to the directive 2, button 2, and the asking on the click of the button element. So what will be the directive?
V on click, or we can write at the red click.
Yeah. So the directive is clear. Now you'll have to like decide on the value of the directive. So you want to toggle. So toggle scene will be the value. Toggle scene, what it does, if the value of the scene is true, then it will make it false. If it's false, then it will make it just alter between true and false. So what will be the answer? So B if is equal to scene, and B on click, and B if is equal to scene, and A and C will be the correct answer. Consider the following view application with markup index.html and JavaScript file app.js. So we have, let's go to the question first. what will be rendered by the browser after 4 seconds. So the first thing we check what will be rendered by the browser. So we have a markup here. So inside the markup, we are rendering the total payable amount. So we need to check what will be the value of total payable amount after the 4 seconds. So what is total payable amount? Total payable amount initially is 0, and we have a simple interest, computed property simple interest. What it does, simple interest will take the principal amount, annual interest rate, and duration, and multiply them and divide it by 100. And we have app data with the first 2000. So this is the data, and now we have a handler set interval which will run after it will run after 1 second, after every 1 second. So what is the data? App data dot pop. So app data, here is the app data, and pop means it will remove from the end. So it will take this data, and after 1 second it will take this data, and then the principal will be 5,000, and the annual interest rate will be 30, and the duration will be 4.
6,000.
Yeah, 6,000. So the total payable amount will be 6,000. Yeah. So actually you will have to calculate the simple interest for all this and add it. So after 3 seconds, what will happen? It will add the simple interest of all 3 data. But after 4 seconds, it will try to pop the element from the app data, but the app data will be empty, so it will do nothing. So after 4 seconds, the result will be same as after the 3 seconds. So 6,000, and you can calculate. I'll check the answer again. It will be greater than 6,000.
8,200.
Yeah, so answer will be 8,200.
So here we have to assume each value will be calculated for every 1 second. And we have to solve.
No, we are not assuming. We are saying that this handler
We are given
the set interval.
Okay, that is given in bracket 1,000. Okay. Clear, sir.
Consider the following view application with markup index.html and JavaScript app.js. So we have a div with ID app, and what we are rendering inside the div is the value of y. And now we have this application, JavaScript for this application. So the data value x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0, and we have a watch. We have a watcher here. So what this watcher does, it watches for the change in x. And if you remember, the first argument of the watch value of the watcher will be the new value of x, and the second argument will be the old value of x.
Yes.
So what this condition says, if the new value is greater than the old value and the new value is also greater than 10, then make the value of y 1. Okay. So what we are going to do here, we are going to watch the value of x, and if the value of x greater than if the new value of x is greater than the old value, and it's also greater than the greater than 11, greater than 10, then the value of y will become 1. So, and here what we are doing, we have created a for loop inside that. So we are running this app.x++ like 20 times. App.x++ means we are increasing the value of x by 1 each time we are running this loop, and we are running this loop 20 times. So because we are increasing the value of x, the new value of x is always going to be greater than the old value of x. And after the 10 iteration, in the 11th iteration, the value of x will be 11. So at that point of time, the value of y will become 1. So what will be the rendered by the browser at that time? So what will be the answer there? Am I audible?
So what is asked? Can you scroll down?
What will be rendered by the browser?
Rendered by the browser.
Sir, one.
That is value of y.
Yeah, that is value of y. Should be actually y. Because we have written y.
Y this is equal to.
Consider the following Vue application with markup index.html and JavaScript file app.js. So we have the markup, the same markup. And if you go to the app.js, it's similar kind of question. Okay. So here we are using the before create. So what will be logged? Can anybody answer?
So before create, data is not initialized.
Yeah. The data
Will be
also is not set up. So X is not available inside this, inside the scope of this before create hook. So what will happen then? What will be the value of this .x?
That will be undefined
Undefined.
before create.
And what will be rendered by the browser?
We are rendering y.
Yeah.
When it will be loaded fully, then value of y will be displayed.
40.
Undefined and 40.
Undefined and 40. Yeah.
So here we have question number 9. Consider the following Vue application with markup index.html and JavaScript file app.js. So we have index.html, div, app, and we are like, we have a component inside this div, and the like we have defined a object, a component one. The template, this is name, and name is component one. And what is value at the component one? Okay. It is straightforward. What will be the answer?
This is component.
This is component 1.
Okay.
This is only.
How this is? Please scroll up. So it should be this is component 1.
We have registered this component. Okay.
Sir, actually that is not backtick. Template and the string should be used the backtick.
This one, template string.
Yes, sir.
That is correct. But this is already there, no? That is inspect template.
No, the backtick you use when you are like defining a multi-line string.
But it is not a multi-line. We are putting in a H4. This is bracket name. Name is just a variable from data.
Okay. The problem is here the data we have defined wrongly.
It should be function. It should be function.
Yeah.
And we must return the value of name. Correct,
It should return the data, right?
correct. Yes, correct.
It's not returning.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes, sir.
the backtick is only used when you are using the multi-line string.
Okay, sir.
consider the following five files are present inside the same directory. Okay. So app.js and sample.txt. These are both inside the same directory. So we are using the fetch function. So fetch function will get the data from the sample.txt and it will return a promise. So when you will apply then on that promise, and then and R, so it will the fetch function will pass the response object to this then method. And this is how the promise works. So the fetch function, what the fetch function does, fetch function will return a promise, which and the value, and inside the then it will pass the resolved value. That is, this is the resolved value from this fetch function. So if r.ok, if you remember the r.ok, r.ok is a boolean value. If the like if the status code is between 200 and 300, r.ok, the value of r.ok will be true, and if it's like not inside the 200 to 300, it will be false. So because both sample.txt and this app.js are in the same file or in the same folder, so it will be 200 because there will be no problem in fetching the data. So this is okay. And then will also return a promise, and on that the value of d will be the value with which this then will be resolved. So it is returning r.text. So the value of this d will be the text value of this that will be sample.txt. So what hello said. So the value of d will be hello world. So the console.log got the data and the hello world. And the cache will not be fired because there is no error. The promise is not being rejected anywhere, so the cache will not be called. The answer is got the data hello world. Any question here?
Suppose in the return, if you are, for this example, if you're putting r.json or HTML, then it will go to the catch block, right? Because it's not able to format.
Yes.
Okay.
HTML I don't know, but for the JSON it will.
Yeah, HTML maybe it will pass, but JSON may not cannot be passed. Okay.
Consider the following JavaScript code. So we have x is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, k is equal to 4, and we have a promise here. So the resolved and rejected. And what the condition says, if k is less than n, so k is 4 and n is 3. So this condition is wrong. So the else block will be executed. So this promise will be rejected with the value bad promise. Okay, so this promise is rejected, and now we are creating the promise 2, and the promise 1 dot then will not be called. It will be called if you will pass 2 handlers inside the then. So if you will pass 2 handlers, like 2 callback functions. So the first callback function will be called in case of the like resolve, in case of resolve, and the second callback function will be called in case of rejection. But here we have only one callback function, so it will be called only when the promise is resolved, but the promise is being rejected, so the error will be passed down to the chain. So it will again it has then, so again it will not be catch here because we don't have anything to catch that error, but here we have a catch, so the error will be logged here, console.log error. And what is the error here? Bad promise.
Bad promise.
The answer will be bad promise. Yeah. Any question?
No, sir.
Okay.
So 1 minute. In uppercase, if you will put suppose then and the catch block, can you go a little bit up?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, here promise, new promise. If you create here new promise dot then, and we have catch this one, and then it will show the both that bad promise and 2 into 2 4.
Oh, you are saying like this.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So the catch will again like it will resolve with the none. Like if the problem with the catch, if you will put the catch between the chain, then once it hits the catch, it will like whatever you want to do inside the catch will be done, and it will like resolve with the return value.
Okay.
So that's why you don't put catch in between the chain.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Consider the following markup index.html and JavaScript app.js. So here we have, so this is the question with the slots. So if you guys, so we have a name slot here, header, with the name header, and we are also binding some data with this slot. So if you remember the slot, so how the slot works, can anybody explain what is slot? Like any high level idea is fine.
Like suppose I have created my custom like element, and the element name is ABC.
Yeah.
Then in the HTML I can put ABC like opening and closing angular bracket ABC. In between, the text I put that will be go to the slot.
So actually the slot is some outlet for some HTML. Like you can pass some template fragment from from parent to children. Like using the prop, what you do, you pass the JavaScript data to the child from parent to child. But using slot, you can pass some HTML from parent to child. So you create a slot inside your child, and you can like populate that slot from the parent. So the problem with this approach is, yeah, actually the principle of Vue says that whatever, I mean, data is only available to, okay, let me frame it correctly. So every element, every component is compiled separately, and the data is only available to that component. Like you cannot use the data of some component in other component while compiling. So if you look at the slot, the data when you are compiling the parent, the data is inside the parent. So the only data that is accessible to the HTML which you are going to put inside the children is the parent data. That what I want to say, that the like the slot data is the child data is not available for the slot template. Like what you are doing. So when you are compiling the parent, the HTML that will be put inside the children will be compiled in the parent. And after the compilation, it will render the HTML, and then that HTML will be put inside the children slot. So let's say you want to, inside that slot, you want to use the children's data. So you cannot use the children's data inside that slot, because because the HTML for that children is being compiled in the parent. So using this slot prop, you can pass the children data to the slot. Are you guys able to follow what I said?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So here inside the data, what we have a user, we have users array, and we have two objects. The element one with the ID one, name Narendra, district Balia, and this is the UP and Abhishek and Delhi. And the current user is null. So the props is equal to current user ID. So this is the prop. And when the created app, inside the created hook, what we are doing, current user is session storage dot get item user ID. So what this line says that from the session storage, get the item user ID. So if you will run the application for the first time, there will be no session storage. So user, the value of the session storage dot get item user ID will be, what will be the value?
Undefined.
Null or undefined.
Yeah, null. So the value is null, and the current user dot ID is equal to current user. So if you see this structure, if the value of the current user is true, then it will be current user. If not, the value will be 2. So the current, because the session, because the current user value is null, the current user ID will be, what will be the current user ID?
2.
Yeah.
Data set.
2. So the current user ID is 2, and then what the this dot current user is this dot users dot find. You are trying to find the user with the current user ID. So the current user ID is 2. So you'll go to the user dot user ID. So the user ID, so the name is Abhishek and the district is Delhi. So inside this current user, this object will be stored. Okay. And then what it's doing, so now the value of the current user is with the user ID 2, and the current user ID is 2. I mean, this object is stored inside the current user, and inside the current user ID 2. And then what we are doing, we are setting the value user ID inside the session storage, and then we are using this condition. So the current user is equal to 1. Will it be false or true?
It will be false.
False.
It would be false.
So it will be false. So the value will be
1.
1.
Wow.
So inside the session storage, the value of user ID will be 1.
1.
Okay, so what it's doing currently, the current user is the user with ID 2, and inside the session storage, it is storing the user with it is storing the ID 1. Now we have the component is name slot. Now let's go to the component. So if you go to the component, inside the component we have a slot with the name header, and we are passing the user current user. So the current user is Abhishek. And then if you go here, so inside the value of the slot prop will become whatever we have passed, the current user we have passed. So this data we have passed to this one. So this is just a syntax. You can go and check for the name slot and you will be able to find. So what is the slot prop and the name slot. So name will be slot prop dot user dot name. So what will be the value? So the slot prop the name will be Abhishek and district will be Delhi. District will be Delhi. Yeah, option B. Any question here?
Can you go up? The value of user ID is 1, right? So 2 is
No. The value of user ID is currently 2. The stored value, the value which we are storing inside the session storage is 1. We are not using that session storage value.
okay.
If you will refresh, then the current value will be 1, will become 1.
So first time it is asking, right?
Yeah, the first time it will be 2, and if we'll refresh, then what will happen? This session, like the current user will directly come from this as like session storage.
Okay.
So will you please repeat that part on refresh? What will happen?
Okay. So what is happening here? So if you will load the application for the first time, we don't have anything stored inside the session storage. So the user ID, like application will not be able to find the user ID inside the session storage. So the first time it will be null. But if you see at the end, what we are doing, we are storing the user ID, the key, the data user ID, and like the value of this user ID is 1. We are storing it inside the session storage. So if you refresh, it is so it the this value will become 1. For the first time, because there is nothing inside the session storage, this will be null. But if you will refresh, because whenever you are loading this application, the user ID is being stored inside the session storage. So if you will refresh, it's already stored. So this statement will return 1.
So on refresh, cached value will be assigned. That will be used.
No, we are not caching. We are storing it inside the session storage.
Okay. Session storage value will be used. And sir, if it is a local storage, the idea is same.
Can you repeat yourself?
If it is instead of session storage, it would have been local storage.
Yeah.
The idea would be same. On refresh only.
The idea will be same. The only change will happen once you close the browser. The session storage will be gone, but the local storage will persist. But here we are just refreshing. We are not closing the browser.
Yes, sir. Now clear, sir. Thank you.
If you refresh, the session storage and local storage is same. The only difference is session storage stores the data till the browser session, but the local storage will persist until you remove it manually or by some program. Rendered when the page loads on the screen for the first time without refreshing the page. So consider the following markup: index.html and JavaScript app.js for the Vue application. So we have So we have app.js. So this is the player component. So name, it will come from the parent, and we have a router view also. That means we have some children for this route. And these are the test and one day components. Let's go to the route straight away. Let's go to the question first. Suppose the application is running on this URL and the user visit the URL localhost 80 and /player/Rohit. So the first thing we need to do, we should go to the path which matches player/Rohit. And then we will be able to find what will be the component, what will be the corresponding component. So player/Rohit, if you go and match the path, so the /player and name will be Rohit. So the value of name will be Rohit. So this will match the path. Okay. So what is the component? It is the player. So here is the player component. But inside the player component, we have a router view. So what will be rendered here?
One day.
Inside of the view. For that, we need to check the children. So if you go to the children's, then the default
One day.
path will be 1 day.
One day.
Yeah, the first name will be rendered, and then the 1 day will be rendered. Like 1 day runs will be rendered. So name will be the Rohit, and the 1 day run, whatever the 1 day run is, name is Rohit, and 1 day run is 10,000. Okay, the option A is correct. So consider the app.js. So suppose the application is running on this port, and okay, the player slash Rohit slash test. So first we will match this one. The value of name will be Rohit, and then we need to go to the children's and check the component corresponding to the test. So we will be able to figure out what will be rendered inside the router view, which is present inside the players component. So if we go here, and if you come to the test, so the component is test. So the first thing, the name will be rendered, and then inside the router view, this component will be rendered. The template of this component will be rendered. So the test run, so a run is 5,000. So test run is 5,000. So the option code, okay, name is Rohit and test run is 5,000. So option C is correct. So now go to suppose the application is running and the user visits the URL /player/Rohit and T20. So the first thing we'll do, we'll go to this part. So we already know the component corresponding to player/Rohit. It is the players component with the name prop Rohit. And all we have to do, we have to go and check what is the corresponding component for the T20. But we don't have anything T20. So what will happen? This path will not match.
Test.
It will go in star.
Sir, one in star it is test.
Yeah, it's inside the star it is test, but whether this part will be rendered or not. This part. So what I'm asking, whether the test will be rendered inside this router view or inside or this router view, because right now what is happening, this router view is rendering the players component, and inside the players component we also have we have one additional router view, and that router view is rendering the children. So but here if you okay, I'll go here. So if you see, this path is outside this children. I mean, this is the new path. Okay. So which will be matched? I mean, which router view will be used as outlet? This one or
Can
this
you
one?
show URL?
Huh?
URL?
It will be only the test run 5,000.
Player also. It will be the other one. Star one.
Yeah.
Outer
The player.
outer one.
Yeah, outer one. The test run 5,000 will be answered. Name Rohit will not be rendered. If this like star is inside this children's, then I mean this path will match at least, and the star will match, and then if what I'm trying to say that if this part is inside this children's, then name Rohit will be rendered, but because it's outside that children, so this will not be rendered because this will not match. Okay. Any question till now?
Suppose we run up to this hash. HTTP local AST 8080 up to S. Then also it will go to the main route view, right?
Yeah, one main, but it will not be able to find any match because we don't have any path corresponding to slash.
Okay, so it will only call the main route view, which is invoke this path star component test.
Yeah, it will only return test.
Okay, got it.
Any question? Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, rest of the question will be discussed by Abhishek. Abhishek, are you here?
Yeah, all right. Yes, Narendra, thanks. Okay, I'll quickly share my screen as well.
Can you able to share this PPT after this session somewhere?
Maybe we can just publish this in the form of a PDF.
Yeah, anything.
I hope my screen should be visible by now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Visible.
All right. So I guess Narendra left it on 15. So I'll start with 16th question. I hope the code is clearly visible. If needed, I can probably zoom in a bit as well. So what is happening in this code snippet is it's a simple JavaScript code where an object is being created with a number of key value pairs. So one of the key value pairs is name and row here. One is arrow function, which is initialized with null as of now. The other one is a normal function, which is also initialized with a function and also has some definition that we'll look at in a minute. So, of course, this object is created here. Nothing is going to happen until and unless you do something with that object. So, the very first step that we do here is basically call this normal function. Since we are using this this pair of parentheses, that means we are calling this function normal function with a reference to obj object. So normal function is this function which has some definition as well as some implementation. So this would be invoked. Now what will happen if you are invoking this function is that it is saying that this dot arrow function. Now this dot arrow function means what this is going to represent here. This will refer to this obj. That means the caller reference. Who is calling this function? Obj is calling this function. So this is referring to obj. This is the caller. So here you can replace this with obj. So ultimately what you are saying here is obj dot arrow function. Let me just write it here as well. Obj dot arrow function. Now if you will look at what is this obj dot arrow function, so this is basically one more variable here that is defined in this object definition, which was initialized with null. But now what we are doing is we are changing its value. So this time we are basically assigning an arrow function as its value. So what that arrow function does is it simply logs some value on the console. But what's the value? It says that it logs the value this.name. Now, if this would have been an normal function, it would have been really easy for you to answer that it would be Rohit, because the value of this inside a normal function is basically the caller's value. So here the caller is obj, so this is always going to refer obj. But as you know that this behaves differently in the arrow functions. How it behaves is that it doesn't depend on the caller reference. What it does is it basically inherits the meaning of this from its parent scope, from its enclosing context. Now, can someone tell me that what is the enclosing context of this arrow function, this assignment?
Normal function, the object.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Object itself. The obj itself.
It's not obj. Actually, it is this function. The function which belongs to obj object. Okay. So if you will look at it, this assignment is being done under the function scope. What is the name of that function? It is normal function. Now, if I'll ask you that since it is a normal function, so you would be able to answer that this is always going to refer to the caller, that means obj, right? So here we are inside the arrow function and we want to print this.name. So here this is what? It's a question. What is it? Because this is an arrow function and it doesn't have a this on its own. What it does is it inherits it from the enclosing context. And what we discussed just now is that the enclosing context is this function, that is normal function. So you have to answer that what the value of this would be inside this normal function. Can someone tell? What will this operator or this reference refer to inside this normal function definition?
Inside normal function, this will be the obj.
Yeah, it would be obj. So what we're doing here is this.name. So what is this? This is obj because it is getting that value, that reference from the enclosing context. So this.name basically means obj.name. And I hope this becomes easy to answer now. Obj.name is going to be Rohit. In the next step, we are simply invoking this function that actually does that logging on the console. So here what happened was we created an arrow function inside a normal function. An arrow function is always going to inherit the value of this reference from the enclosing context. The enclosing context here was a normal function, and inside a normal function, the value or this refers to the calling object, right? Whoever is calling. So who was calling there? It was obj object. So that's why the answer would be Rohit. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So if normal function would have been a arrow function.
Yeah.
In that case, this will be, means we cannot apply this to the arrow functions. In that case, that will be. That
You
will
can
not
apply,
work.
you can apply, but this is not going to refer to obj in that case.
In that case, okay. So in that case, the answer will be undefined.
The answer would be undefined, yes.
Undefined. Okay, sir.
Sir, what about the obj.arrow function, the second line?
The second line. Yeah, so what
Sorry,
it does
the
is,
last line.
with the first invocation, we are assigning an arrow function to this arrow function variable. In the next line, we are invoking that. Until and unless we don't invoke it, we don't execute the last statement, this statement won't be executed, this console.log. Because what you are doing is, you are just creating a function here. And a function is nothing until and unless you invoke it, you call it.
So if we remove obj.normal function, the answer will be again undefined.
If we remove obj.
Normal function line, that second last button line.
In that case, it is going to give you an error. Because if you are not invoking this function, what is arrow function? It is a variable which is initialized with null. And you cannot call null with parentheses.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, whoever else was asking that question, is that clear?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
All right, we shall move to the next question. Maybe I can just try to this would be easier for you to read. So what is happening here is start name printer is basically an arrow function which we are invoking here in the last statement of this program. Now what is happening inside this function is that you are creating a variable x where you are getting an argument, you are splitting it by an empty string. So of course, if you are splitting it using an empty string, that means it is going to split each and every character. It is going to create an array. The size of that array is going to be 6 since there are 6 characters in this orange string. And what it does is it does a reverse of that. So after name.split, it is going to create an array with elements O, R, A, and G, E. If you do a reverse, then just the order of those elements would be reversed and the array would become E, G, N, A, R, O. This is what the array would become. Okay. Now, what is going to happen next time is, instead in the next statement is, you are creating a set interval block here. What it does is, it basically pops the element from the array X, it assigns it to Y, it logs it onto the console. But this set interval is going to be executed after every 1000 milliseconds. And when will it going to end? It is going to end after these many number of milliseconds or seconds. So what is name.length? Name.length is 6. 6 plus 1, 7. 7 into 1000 being 7000 milliseconds. So that means this is going to execute for 7 seconds. So after every 1 second, this function would be executed. And after executing for 7 seconds, this would stop. Or instead 6 or 7 seconds. This may depend on browser. Okay. So what the question asks here is that what is the last value shown on the console after 4 seconds? So remember, it is asking after 4 seconds, what is the last value that will be shown? If we try to do a dry run of this block and see what is going to happen. So since we know that this set timeout is at least going to take 6 seconds, if not 7, at least going to take 6 seconds to execute. So we are sure that this is not going to end by 4 or 5 seconds. So okay, that we don't need to worry right now. So what we'll do is we will pop an element from the array X. Now, you know that what is array X? Array X is basically an array of this string, or basically each and every character of this string is an element of that array, but in the reverse order. So that means E is the first element and O is the last element. But remember, when we are using pop, what does pop does? What does pop do? As you know, as you would expect, it would. Sorry,
last element
and delete it.
Exactly. It is going to delete the last element from the array. Okay. So can someone tell me that what is the last element in the X array? We are talking about the first iteration.
O.
O.
It is going to be O, correct. So the very first time, it is going to pop O, and it is going to log it on the console. So after 1 second, so as you know that whatever code is written here, this is going to be executed after these many seconds or these many milliseconds. So if it is 1000, that means this code will be executed after 1 second. So after 1 second, O will be shown. Next time, after waiting for 1 more second, it would again come here. Now, what is the second last element, or instead the last element, because that has already been deleted. So O was deleted. Now, the last element in the array is R. So R will be popped, R will be logged. Next time you will come here again, A will be popped, A will be logged. So this was the result after 3 seconds. Now comes the 4 seconds. So after 4 seconds, the 4th element would be popped from the array. What is the 4th element? That is A. Oh, sorry, not A, it's N. A has already been done. Now it's the turn of N. So N would be popped and N will be logged onto the console. So N is going to be the answer if the output is being asked after 4 seconds. If it would have been asked after 5 seconds, the answer would have been G. Is this okay? Is that understood?
I just wanted to make sure after 4 seconds and at 5th second, that is both are different.
Sorry, 4 seconds and?
After 4 seconds and at 5th second. If I use at word, that both are different in meaning, na?
After 4 seconds or at 5th second, I'm not able to understand the difference.
After 4 seconds means what I was assuming means at the next second, means at 5th second.
Yes, you can consider that different. Yes.
Okay. Now the wording we are using in exam, if this comes in this fashion, we have to consider at the 4th second. After 4 seconds means at 4th second.
That means the output won't be shown before 4 seconds. Yeah, you can say it is very close, that at 4 seconds or after 4 seconds.
Okay.
Suppose here it will be 10 seconds, after 10 seconds, then after 7 seconds,
Yes.
there will be nothing log, so console log will show the last value, right?
Yeah, then in that case, the output will be E.
E, always E, whatever
Yes.
after. Okay.
Anything after 6 or 7, it is always going to be E.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, shall we move to the next question if that is okay?
Yeah, please, please.
Okay. So here again, this is a JavaScript program. Let me do one thing. Okay. So what is happening here is we have a variable named start, which is initialized with value 5. We have a function here, which is named check. And we are calling this function here check. And since we are using then, so we can assume that it is going to return some promise here. So the moment we call check here, what it does is that basically creates a promise. This promise accepts two parameters, two callbacks. One is res, the other one is rej. Res is going to refer to the resolve callback. Rej is going to be the reject callback. Now, as soon as we get inside the definition of this promise, we create one more set interval block. Again, it is going to keep executing after every 500 milliseconds. That means after every 0.5 seconds. What will happen is it just increments start. So what is the initial value of start? It was 5. The moment you enter here, after waiting for 500 milliseconds, you just add 1 to its previous value. So it becomes 6, and you check that if start is triple equals to 7. So this triple equals is used in order to avoid the implicit coercion that JavaScript engine does by default in certain cases. So that means the start should be an integer 7 value, a number 7 value. If it is a string value that is also 7, then it won't become true. Well, in that case, it is 6. So anyway, this condition is going to become false. And in the else, we are just going to show yet to reach. So the very first thing that would be logged on the console is yet to reach. Now, after waiting for 500 more milliseconds, we will execute this block once again. The last value of start was 6. This time it has become 7. So the moment we'll check here, 7 triple equals to 7. So of course, this time this condition is going to become true, as both of the values on the LHS and RHS are equal. So the very first thing it does is it shows reached message on the console. Remember, we already have one message being shown on the console that was yet to reach. This time we are showing reached. So there are 2 lines of messages that have now been logged onto the console so far. After that, what happens is clear interval. That means you just stops this set interval loop. And after this, what you have is you have 2 things. Firstly, you are calling res. The secondly, you are calling rej. So whichever is called first, that would be considered. So here res is being invoked first before rej. So res would be taken into the consideration, and this rej would be silently. There will be no effect of this statement at all. So what will happen is you are calling res callback. So if you will try to get it from here, from these parameters, can someone tell me if res refers to resolve or reject?
It will
Resolve.
resolve.
Res is resolve. The reason is that it is the first parameter. The first parameter always refers to the resolve callback. The second parameter is, refers to the reject callback. So res is the resolve callback. What it does is it resolves with a string value pass. So the control will go here in the then block. Okay, can someone tell now that which block would be executed? Will it be then or catch?
No, then.
It would be then, since the promise is getting resolved this time.
Right.
So what it does is it simply shows the value that it as an argument. So that is going to be pass. So the three messages that are shown on the console are yet to reach, the first message, second message is reached, and the third message is this pass. So yet to reach, reached, or pass. So the first one is the correct answer. Okay. Is that okay?
If in clear interval,
Yes.
if some like in the previous question we gave, like it should run 2-3 more cycles, then okay, then it will say yet to reach, then reached, or it will not call again the once we will write this result.
Sorry, can you just repeat your question?
I am telling, suppose that the start is 5, so 6 it is writing yet to reach. Then when the 7 it is become, it is going to the console.reached and calling the clear interval.
Yes.
Now suppose, okay, there is no way because we are writing the clear interval. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you explain the difference between set interval, timeout, and the clear interval?
See, set interval means that everything that you will write inside this function, that is going to be executed after every these many milliseconds. And where do you use set timeout is that you basically put up a timer there.
Okay,
that
so
this set
timeout
of code
also
is going to be
set.
executed only once after these many seconds or milliseconds are elapsed.
Timeout
getting my
is
point?
like only once.
Yeah, set timeout will only execute once.
Okay, and set interval will continue.
It will keep executing until and unless you don't clear the interval.
Okay.
So for this question, even this clear interval was not written, then also
And
this.
it would have shown yet to reach
No, but
infinite
when
number of
you're
times.
writing this resolved, so resolve will go and call this pass parameter, right?
Yes.
Or it will again go and call it. If suppose.
No, see, once the value has become 7, now the next time, even if you don't have a clear interval here, it is never going to come inside this block because this condition is never going to become to next time.
No, but when we are calling this resolved
Yes.
will come and it will show this console.pass. And you are telling again it will go and invoke it because still my interval is active, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In case this clear interval is not there.
Okay. Thank you. Got it.
I hope this should happen. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me just try it right away. Just this. Yeah. So it will keep executing.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Shall we move to the next question?
Yes, sir.
So in order to ensure that items entered to the to-do list persist even after the screen refresh by adding it to the local storage with the code that can be placed in code. So the index.html file is so we just okay, all right. The code does not matter much. So we basically need to select the correct statement that can help us in writing a key value pair to the local storage. So of course, if you need to write something to the local storage, you should be using set item of the API or the set item API method. So the B and D options are automatically eliminated. Now you have to pick between A and C. So what is happening in these two options is the difference is in one of the options you are stringifying this to-do.list. Sorry, to-do list. What is this to-do list? So it is basically an array. And in the other one, you are trying to convert it into an object. Of course, so if you need to save something into the local storage, so as we have already discussed quite many times that it must be first stringified in order to save it to the local storage so that you can even fetch it in the same, in the same manner. So let's say if you try to store an object in the local storage. Well, no issues, you can do that, but the next moment you will try to fetch that object, you won't get the value that you will expect, because that would be changed to something, an array having object in it, some kind of different value. That won't be the actual value that you basically saved before. So every time you want to save something to the local storage, you must stringify it. So of course, the answer A is going to be the correct option in that case. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a Vue application here, and the question asks, suppose the application is running on this. If a user visits the index.html and click on the button normal, where is button normal? So button normal is here, and then close the tab in which the application is open, and then again visit the website. What will be the background color of div with ID tab? So we need to set the background color. All right. So when the user opens this application for the first time, so there is this created hook. So what it does is it has this. 1 second. Website mode. Website. Anyways, I guess since we are going to click on that button, so it will definitely change afterwards. So let us just focus on this normal. So let's say what happens is you click on this normal button. Now the action or what will happen in return is when you click on this normal button, it is going to invoke a function change mode with argument that is normal. So change mode is here. The argument that you get here in form of mode is basically normal itself. So what you do here is you basically create a variable in the session storage with EID mode. And after that, what you do is you just put it, the value of it is going to be what? It's going to be normal. And after that, what you do is this dot mode equals to mode. So mode is basically a variable here. Yeah, it is null. So this time it would become normal. Right? So the moment you will click on this button that is normal, what it does is it creates a key value pair in the session storage. The key name is model. The value to it is normal. And it also changes the value of mode view instance variable to normal. After that, what we are doing is we are closing this tab and we are opening the application in a new tab. So since we saved everything in the session storage, closing the tab would basically clear it. Right? And when we are opening it in a new tab, the session storage is empty. Right? So what will happen is we will come to the created hook. We'll see that session storage.get item mode. So of course, what it is going to return?
Null.
Yeah, it is going to return undefined, I guess.
Okay.
So website mode is basically undefined. So what it does is this dot mode is equal to website mode. If this value is not undefined, not null, not zero, then in that case, this would be executed. So this is basically a ternary operation, a conditional operation. And in case this condition is false, then this would be executed. So since it is basically undefined, so definitely this is not a true expression. So what will happen is the expression written after false would be executed. So that means what will happen is this dot mode will get the value dark. And what is this mode? This mode is basically a view instance variable, which was initialized with value null, but now it has been changed to dark. Now, since we need to predict the background color of that div who is having ID app, so since the value of mode is actually dark, it is actually dark. So what is going to happen is since this expression would become true, the style that is going to be applied is going to be dark. So dark is an object here. So according to it, the background color would be black. So the answer would be black here. Any issues with this question?
No, sir.
No, sir.
We shall move to the next question then. So this question is related to stores. Fill in code 1 inside a mutation handler, which can be used to reduce the price of each of the products in the state by a certain discount. So we have to find out what is this code 1 placeholder. So we have discount variable 10. Products is basically an array of products, an array of objects. And this is a mutation, deduce price, and we need to write the correct definition of this mutation. So let us see that what is going to be the correct definition and which all are not. So this dot store dot state dot products. What do you think? Is this option valid?
No, sir.
The option is not valid because this dot dollar store variable is being used. And since we are inside the mutation itself, that means we are inside the Vuex store itself, we don't need to use this dot store. It won't even work. We have to use this state. Right? In case we want to access any value from the state, we can directly use state dot whatever that value is. So here it is product. So state dot product would suffice. So second option can be true since it is using state dot products. Third option, commit dot products. Do you think that commit dot products is making any sense? So commit is basically used to call a mutation function, but commit dot it basically doesn't make any sense. What we usually do is we call the commit method and we pass in the mutation name inside the commit argument. But commit dot product is itself does not make any sense. Okay, so third option also is a wrong option. And dispatch dot products is something very similar. Dispatch is used for invoking action functions. Again, it is used using store variable. This dot store dot dispatch. Again, dispatch dot products does not make any sense. So the only option we are left with is the B option. That is going to be true option in this case. So here we actually didn't look at the implementation for each of those options. We just tried to eliminate. And if you will even look at its definition, so what is happening is, I guess it is almost same in each of the function or in each of the option. What we are doing is we are just iterating over this products array and we are decreasing the price by 10%, whatever the value of this discount variable is. So it is 10. So we are decreasing it by 10%. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. And this dot dollar store will be used by direct component only, no?
Sorry?
This dot dollar dot state that will be used by the direct component. The
Yes,
immediate
it would
child.
be used inside the component. Yes.
Immediate child or child to child. That I wanted to make.
Anyone, any component.
Any child, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So question number 22, I guess we are finished. But you are finished with programming questions. So this is a quite simple question. Which of the following HTTP request methods is cacheable in general? So I hope all of you would be able to answer that. It is GET, as we have already discussed many times that any request, the response of which can be constructed just after seeing the URL, it is easier to cache such kind of request, because what happens is that the caching is generally done at the proxy level, and at proxy level, you basically do not see the request body. What you are able to see is the request URL only. So the request body can be seen at the backend, at the server, at the origin server. So that's why the GET request is generally cacheable. Of course, it is also possible to cache other request methods as well, but I'm not sure. Means if it is definitely it is not a trivial way to do, but there might be mechanisms to do caching for such type of request as well. But if we talk about in general, so any request whose response can be generated just after looking at the URL is cacheable. So that is GET in this case. Okay, so consider the Flask application. Something here. If a user visits index.html at 10:10 a.m., so the complete timestamp is given, what will be logged on the console approximately. Okay, so what we are doing is we are visiting this index.html file at 10 hours, 10 minutes, 10 seconds, and we have to predict that what is going to be shown on the output screen. So you go to index.html, what will happen is So there is basically nothing that will be shown on the browser, but there is some script that would be executed. So what is happening with that script is we are making a few fetch calls. So we just have a function here, test, and we are invoking that function here at the bottom, if you can see here. So what happens is in the very first fetch call, we make a request to the home endpoint of this application. So what is the home endpoint? That is the / endpoint. What it does is it says just sleep for 10 seconds. Okay. So let's say the request was sent on 10 seconds. So, since we are considering that the request was sent in 10 seconds, so we will just forget about the hours, the number of minutes as of now. We'll just consider the seconds. So the number of seconds were 10. We sent the request at 10 seconds. The moment this request got here, the server said just sleep for 10 seconds and do nothing. So the server slept for 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds, it is going to send the response. So what will happen is when the response will be sent, it is going to be received here. So it is going to send something what? It is going to send datetime.now.second. So it is going to send the current seconds. So it is going to be 10 plus 10, that is going to be 20. What you do is you just return it as it is, and after that you show it on the console. So the first thing that will be shown on the console is going to be 20. Is that okay to everyone? The first value that will be logged on the console is going to be 20.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, sir.
Now the thing to note here is that we are running this Flask application in non-threaded. Now, can someone tell me that what is basically expected from a Flask application which is running in a non-threaded?
So one request will be one time only. It will not allow multiple requests.
Exactly. So the second request will only start getting processed when the response of the first request or the previous request has been sent. So that means doesn't matter if we are making two fetch API calls continuously. The second API call, that is this second /profile, this is going to wait in the queue until the server sends a response back for the first request. So the server sends the response back to the first request at 20 seconds, because that is the value that was shown on the console. At 20 seconds, the server will get this second request. As soon as it gets this request, it starts processing. It says that just sleep for 30 seconds this time. Previously, it slept for 10 seconds. This time, it is saying to sleep for 30 seconds. Remember, the time we got this request at is 20. Now, you are just adding 30 to the previous value, that is 20. So 20 plus 30 is what? It is going to be 50. Now, again, the number of seconds are going to be returned to the second fetch. It is going to be returned in form of JSON, and you will just simply show that value on the console. So the first time it will show 20, the second time it will show 50. Yes. Yes, Salim.
Yes, sir, I wanted to ask if the timing which it is given, is it fixed 10 and 30? Because it is written in the function now.
Yes, it is fixed.
Okay, so there's no, okay, huh.
I'm not completely sure if I understood your question correctly.
Yeah,
is there any
so-
chance that timings may vary?
Yeah. Is there any chance that, so the first website that comes, the first URL that comes, that will be fetched, and it will go to sleep for 10 seconds, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the second order will wait for as much time as it will take.
Correct. So whenever the first request has been processed completely, then only this Flask application will start processing the next request. Till then, all of the requests will be kept inside a queue. So yeah, answer A. So 2050. Yeah, it is the most.
Sir, my question was that will the time make a difference? Now here the time is 10, 10, 10.
Yes.
Okay.
So of course there might be some lags, some network lags. So that's why approximately is mentioned here, and 2050 is the most appropriate option out of the options given. Right? Because there will definitely be a wait of 10 seconds for the first request and 30 seconds for the second request. So there is no other option in this question which satisfies this criteria. So of course there might be some network lags, so that can be ignored as of now. Is that okay? Shall we move to the next question if everyone is okay with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I guess the programming questions have been finished. So as you guys mentioned last time in the quiz to feedback that there were a few theory questions which were not quite easy to attempt. So that's why we have kept a few of the theory questions as well, so that we can discuss a few concepts. So which of the following statements is true about Redis? So data is always manipulated in the main computer memory, that is RAM. It stores, probably I should remove the answers from here, but I do that. So which of the following statements is true about Redis? So the very first thing is that the data is always manipulated in the RAM. It stores data on the disk by default. Data cannot be reconstructed back. That means if the data is lost once, there is no way that you can retrieve that data once again. And data is stored as key value pairs. So what do you think? Which all options are correct here?
Fourth one is correct for sure.
First
Fourth one
is
is correct. So if
A
you will
is
read
also
the first option a bit carefully, it says that the data is always manipulated. Like, see, even if we are talking about your system, the data is always going to be manipulated in the RAM only. Right? If you want to perform some operation on your data, it has to be taken to RAM, right, in order to process something. So the first option is, of course, it is a general option, and this is even true for our machines as well. If something requires some modification, some operation, so that has to be done inside RAM. The data has to be taken to the RAM, and then the operations are performed. So the options which are true here are option A, definitely. It stores data on the disk by default. By default, as you all know, that Redis basically puts everything into the main memory by default. Maybe it can be configured to store the data in the hard disk, but by default functionality is that it does it in the RAM. And data cannot be reconstructed back. That is again false, because it can always be retrieved if it gets lost somehow. So the correct options to this question are option A and option D. Option B and C are incorrect.
So I'm having a doubt.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
So if option A is true, option C, that is data cannot be reconstructed back.
Yeah.
That should also be true, no?
No, why?
Because in RAM, suppose if data is lost, okay, that scenario is not possible.
In Redis, it is always possible. You have a buffer.
Okay. Okay, no, power of that scenario is not considered. That's why it's not true. Okay, yes, sir.
Sorry, I did not get it. Can you repeat?
Means in RAM, as power goes off, the data is lost. No? So we are not talking about that particular scenario there. Option C.
We are talking about the Redis in general. So in Redis, of course, it is always possible.
Yes.
Well, of course, if you talk about the volatile memory concept, yes, it's a general thing.
Yes.
So previously we talked about Redis. Now we are going to talk about Celery. So as you all know, that Celery is basically a framework that is used for asynchronous task execution. What happens in a Celery system is that there are a number of workers, and the Celery system is connected to an application using a message broker, a message queue, where the application pushes all of the tasks that are to be performed, and the message broker distributes or delegates those tasks to the brokers, whichever are available at that moment, and the brokers will carry out those tasks and will send back the result to the result backend if required. It is not always mandatory to have the result backend. Your purpose is getting fulfilled even without having a result backend. You are free to skip that as well. But this is how our typical Celery system looks like. So Celery system can consist of multiple brokers. That option is of course true. In general, what we do is that the number of brokers depend on the number of cores that a machine has. A machine has 4 CPUs or 4 cores, so it's probable that you can make use of maximum 4 brokers. The workers will automatically retry if connection is lost. So I hope if you would have tried running Celery at least once, you would have already noticed that in case there is a task that you push to your Celery system, if it is getting failed somehow, then what it does is it basically retries it a certain number of times. I guess around 100 times or something. I don't remember the exact number. Yeah, but it basically tries those tasks once again if it is getting failed. Redis and RabbitMQ are the only supported brokers. Well, of course, that's not the correct option because there are many other message queues that are also available in the market and that can be used as brokers. And even Redis was not even meant to be a message broker initially. As you all know, it was meant to be a just in-memory database, but it is used very widely as a message broker these days. It has features to monitor and schedule tasks. So how many of you have heard about Flower? I'm not sure, but yeah, it is also a library that can be used in order to monitor the Celery tasks. Basically provides you a web-like interface as well, through which you can monitor all that. So if you talk about the true statements, so Celery system can consist of multiple brokers. That's correct. The workers will automatically retry if connection is lost. That's also correct. Redis and RabbitMQ are the only supported brokers. That's incorrect. And fourth option is also correct. So A, B, and D are the correct options.
For the fourth option, we need to install some other framework or API for monitoring.
See, even if you have the terminal open, you are able to see that which tasks are getting executed, which task is under processing, and what is the result of each of the tasks that has been executed till now.
Yeah, that we can, but once you close it, it will go on. After that, again, the new jobs are started, we can monitor, but not the old one.
Yes, of course. Old ones will not be. If you want to maintain a log of those, you can probably do that.
We need to store somewhere that log. Okay.
Yeah. So is that question okay? 25th. Shall we move to the next question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So question number 26. Which of the following statements is true regarding message broker? So they serve as intermediary between applications, which allow senders to issue a message without knowing the state of the receiver. After knowing the state of the receiver. So let's first discuss about the first two options. So both of the options are saying that they serve as intermediary between two applications. That's absolutely true. But the counter statement for these statement is that they can only send messages to the message queue if they know the state of the receiver. The other option says if they don't even need to know the state of the receiver. What do you think? Which of the first two options is correct?
So they don't need to know the state of the receiver.
Exactly. That's the entire purpose of having a message broker or a message queue in between, right? So that you don't even need to worry that what the other server or other resource is doing. You just push message to the message queue, that's over. You don't need to worry about anything. You will trust the message broker that it will delegate that task to the whichever server is capable of handling that request or whatever it is. So that's why you don't even need to worry that what the other server is doing, whoever you intend to send the message to. So in that sense, the first option would become true, the second option would become false. Inter-application communication is often asynchronous. Now, suppose if you are making use of message queue, what do you think? The communication that you are doing there, is it synchronous or asynchronous? if you have a message queue in your system, in your network, what do you think?
It should be
Asynchronous.
asynchronous. We are not bothered about the response.
Exactly, it should be asynchronous because you are not waiting for the response at all. What you are doing is you are just pushing the message to the message queue, and of course, you don't really wait for the response. You will assume that yeah, the task will be executed by the machine or the server, whoever is capable of completing that. Okay. So whenever we basically introduce this message broker or an intermediary between two applications, we can say that the communication is asynchronous. Well, if we talk about things like point-to-point communication where each server is connected to every other server in the network, in that case, I don't feel there is a need of introducing a message broker, because if a server is connected to every other server in the network, why do you even need a message broker if the server can itself interact with the system? Right? So in that case, the communication will not be synchronous. It may be, but in most of the cases, it should not be. But if you're introducing a message broker, then of course it cannot be asynchronous. It cannot be synchronous at all. It will be asynchronous. So the first option is true, and the third option is true. So A and C are the correct options. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
The next question is webhooks and WebSockets. So a webhook uses HTTP protocol. Of course, we have studied that what is a webhook. A webhook is generally a communication between two servers, because webhooks are not generally invoked by human clients. It is basically a machine that triggers a webhook. We need to configure the webhook URL or the application URL where the application is supposed to send the request when a certain event happens. So, of course, it uses general HTTP protocol. There is nothing different. A WebSocket is used to achieve two-way communication. So WebSocket is basically a protocol in itself. And where do we use it? In order to achieve full duplex communication, right? Where we want the sender and receiver to interact simultaneously. That means the sender, let's say there are two machines, A and B, they both should be able to transmit messages at a given time. So this is where the WebSocket will come into play. A webhook is primarily used for server-to-server communication. Like I just mentioned, that webhooks are not generally meant for human clients, because they are meant for servers, they are meant for machines. Whenever a certain event happens, the machine should automatically send a request to the webhook URL that you provide to it. And a webhook generally keeps the connection long alive. No, that's not true. That is basically true for WebSocket, because what you do in webhook is you send a request to the specified URL, and after that, your work is done. So if we talk about the correct options here, a webhook uses HTTP protocol. That's correct. A option is correct. B option is also correct. C option is also correct. So it's the fourth option that is wrong. Everything else is correct.
But WebSocket keeps the connection long alive, right? Not the
Yes.
No.
Yes, correct. So yeah, fourth option talks about webhook. So that's why it is wrong. All right. If this is okay, shall we move to the next question?
Yes, sir.
So which of the following statements is false regarding polling and long polling? So see, whenever we are referring to the keyword polling, so we are referring to the short polling, right? And if we want to mention about long polling, we have to mention specifically that long poll. That means we are specifically talking about long polling. So here, if we are saying in polling, that means we are talking about short polling. Okay. In polling, a client make repeated calls to the server at fixed time intervals. That's exactly what happens in case of short polling. It is also a computer science basic concept. That what happens is that the CPU will keep checking with the process that do you need my help? Do you need my help? Do you need my help? And this is basically not an efficient thing to do, because the CPU has to always keep checking with the process or a program whichever is running to check if it requires any assistance from the CPU. So of course there will be an instance that the CPU would find that yeah, there is actually some help that is required, some work has to be done, but in most of the cases this is just making useless calls. Just reverse to that, there is a concept in computer science that is interrupt, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. So in short polling, this happens that a client is going to make repetitive request to a server after a certain time interval. And in case of long polling, what it does is it makes a request. If the server has nothing to return, the client says, okay, that's fine. I'll just keep this connection open. I'll keep you busy as well until and unless you don't give me the data. So the disadvantage of long polling is that you are basically keeping both the client and the server occupied, even if there is no communication happening. So when will the connection be closed in case of long polling? When the server has something to return. So server, let's say, got some data that has to be returned to the client. The connection has already been opened. The server will return it to the client, and the connection would be closed. Now it depends on the client when it is supposed to open that connection once again. That can be handled separately. So this is the difference between short polling and long polling. So if we talk about the first option, that is polling, so that option is true because that's exactly what happens in case of short polling. Second option says polling requires a persistent connection to the server. That's also true because you don't, sorry, that's not correct because we are just talking about polling. So polling means short polling. And short polling means we are closing the server immediately when there is no response or even if there is a response. So this does not require a persistent connection. That means the connection to be kept open. So second option is wrong. Third option, in long poll mechanism, the connection is kept alive. That is true because we wait for the server to respond with something, with some data. So third option is also true. So of course, fourth option becomes wrong. So A and C are the true options for this particular question. Any doubts in this?
No, sir. Clear.
So 29th question, which of the statements are correct? A webhook pushes the messages to an application. Well, whenever we configure a webhook URL to, let's say, even on GitLab or GitHub, what it does is it generally makes a post request. And whenever we are making a post request, we expect that some data is going to come from that application. Well, we expect that payload to be minimum as far as possible, but still a webhook is meant for pushing the messages to the application because we are making a post request. Okay, so that option is true. Webhook pulls the messages from an application, so that option is of course wrong, but an API pushes the messages to an application. So a webhook doesn't pull the messages, it basically pushes the messages to the application, right? Because the application, which is basically waiting for a request from the machine, let's say from the GitHub or from the GitLab server. So the application that you have created is basically waiting for some information from those services, that when a request will come to me, it will have some data that I can process. So second option becomes wrong. Third option, webhooks are generally synchronous in nature. Of course, webhooks are synchronous. And D option, API can pull and push the messages from or to an application. So the only option that is wrong here is option B. Everything else is correct. Any doubts in this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So the next question is again, I guess we have already discussed about message broker somewhere. Yeah, okay, this is probably a different question. So what is the role of the message broker? It ensures that the message gets delivered to the correct recipient. Yes, this is the job of a message broker. That's why the client, kind of trusts the message broker that whatever task has been pushed to it is going to be accomplished soon, or wherever that server who is going to accept the task will get available. Okay. So first option is true. In general, if the message is undelivered in the first try, it fails and doesn't retry again. That's wrong. By default also, it is going to retry it certain number of times. So the second option becomes wrong. It ensures that the messages are processed in LIFO manner. I hope you understand what is meant by LIFO. LIFO means last in, first out. So do you think that the messages or the tasks that are pushed to the message broker or the message queue, they are processed in LIFO manner?
I
No,
think
sir.
first in, first out.
No,
FIFO.
it should not.
It should not be, yes. So what should be the order?
First in, first out.
First in, first out.
Exactly, it should be FIFO. So third option is also wrong. It can send messages to multiple recipients if required. Of course, you can do that since we are making use of message broker. So it can, of course, be done. So in that case, the first option is correct. B option is wrong. Third option is also wrong. Fourth option is correct. So A and D are the correct options.
So message brokers are in asynchronous nature, correct?
Yes.
Then why it should be FIFO for that matter?
See, we are saying that message broker are what? They are basically creating a queue of the messages that are getting pushed. So whenever we talk about queue, so of course queue is a data structure, and the approach or the order that a queue implements is FIFO itself. Whatever the message that comes first will be processed first. Until and unless there is some priority that is assigned to the messages. If there is some priority, let's say a high priority task came, so of course it may happen that the message queue will put that high priority task in front of the worker before it basically gives out the other task. But in general, of course, it is going to be FIFO approach. LIFO is completely inverse of that. Never true.
So what is the limit on size?
How does it preserve asynchronous nature?
See, the reason we are saying it asynchronous is because the client who is basically pushing the messages to this message broker doesn't wait for a response. What it does is it just pushes the message and it sits back.
It means it is assigned the work. Now it's your job how to do it in a particular order. First input.
Yes, there will be so many requests. So, but the request will be processed in the FIFO order. But as and when it is processed, it gets as a response to the client who requested for it.
No, it is not telling any response.
See, if you want, you can return that response to the client, but the client ideally should not be waiting for that response to come.
Right.
Otherwise, what is the whole purpose of using message queue? Why don't you simply forward that task to the server that is capable of handling that request? The whole purpose of bringing in this message broker is so that you don't need to wait for the response. If you have multiple tasks, if you have multiple requests coming in, you will simply keep pushing all of them into the queue. And whenever the servers are available to handle those requests, they will do.
It's got it. Thank you.
Yeah, asynchronicity or synchronicity is not like related to the message broker. It's just a data structure which stores the message. This synchronicity and asynchronicity is related to the communication, whether the communication is asynchronous or synchronous. The communication is asynchronous because we are not waiting for response to come. We are just pushing, the client is just pushing the message in the message broker, and that's it. And now what is the Celery? If you are using the Celery system, it's the job of the Celery system to like assign the job to the workers. Whatever system you are using. So the synchronicity and asynchronicity is related to the communication. So don't get confused.
So how many workers can we have? Is there any limit on the size of that?
As I mentioned that you generally have as many as workers, the number of ports that you have in your system.
Depending on number of ports.
Yes. Okay, yeah, these are all the questions that we picked out for the today's session. So after this session, we'll make a PDF version of it available on the portal. I'll inform you all of the discords as well.
Can we have a session in next week also? Calendar is not updated yet.
Yeah, so may I know that what you want to be discussed in that session?
I want quiz questions to be discussed.
Sorry, which questions?
Quiz questions. Quiz one.
Do you have any specific questions
yes,
to be discussed?
I have. Yes, I have.
Okay, can you just tell me right now?
Just a second.
How many such questions are there?
There will, yeah, like an hour session will be should be sufficient. I will be having some close to 8 questions.
We expected to have it in different session then.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll also be having some questions.
And I'm
Okay.
sure
Similarly,
there are
can
going to
we
be
have one
few common
session on-
questions.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have one session on backend configuration in one stroke?
Sorry, backend what?
Backend configuring backend for everything like Celery for authorization.
I
In
think
one
Narendra
stroke.
showed it in the last session, right? He created a Flask application and integrated Celery system with it.
The last session I missed, but the authorization, actually the API that sir has shared now, we used
Yeah.
throughout the session. We are not able to install packages for that. That's not running. And he explained the changes he made, but once if he can with some explain one example, if you can show, it will help us to design the backend application.
I guess Narendra created a entire Celery application in the last session to send emails out. He also integrated it with a Flask application as well. Like how do you trigger a job via a Flask application? He did it in the last session, so you can probably refer to that.
So specifically Flask security, that is Flask security 2. When
Yeah.
the package is being installed, it is creating some problem over there in virtual environment. Somehow it is not able to run that Python file on our end. That I tried mostly. I raised on Discourse also regarding the doubts for it.
Okay, I have not looked at the discourse today, so I'll probably have a look at it and will respond
Okay.
to you then.
Yes, sir. And I also wanted to know, is there any way that we can test our front end without building back end?
Is there a way?
We require API to test our front end application.
Yes.
If the backend is not ready, is there any way to emulate or simulate that API?
You can probably use a JSON server if you are just using it for a testing purpose. You can start a JSON server where you just keep some 2 or 3 records in a JSON file.
Okay.
So if you just want to do testing, yeah, that's the best thing that I can suggest right now.
Means online server.
No. You can install JSON server.
Okay.
You can install JSON
Yeah.
server. So you can simply create a .json file with a number of objects. So each object will basically act as an entity. And you just need to make the fetch calls as usual.
Okay, sir. We can set API for that JSON object. Specific
that JSON server is going to act as an API for you then. It is acting as a server which is giving you the response back for the request that you are making.
Will it support multiple endpoints? That is my question.
Yes, it does.
Okay. I will test them. If any doubt comes, can ask for this question.
Yeah.
So are you using WSL 1 or 2? I don't know
I'm
why you
using
are facing the
WSL 2.
problem.
Sir, I'm using WSL 2 with Ubuntu 18.04 and Python 3.8.10.
I mean, I followed all these steps and tried to reinstall in like some other folder, and I was able to do that. That's why, I mean, I'm surprised why you are like facing this kind of issue.
I tried at least 4 or 5 times today. I even uninstalled that complete Ubuntu LTS and reinstalled twice and tried the entire process, but somehow that was not. It is able to create a virtual environment, but it is not running that Python file and even not showing any error.
So I am using WSL only. I'm not facing any problem.
So then how it is, why it is not running that Python file? It's the same application.
Share the code in, I don't know, you cannot share the code also.
Okay, we'll try once again.
Okay, all right. I'll also try to take a look at it if you are saying it is on Discord already.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am facing difficulty in the token-based authentication in the project. I'm not able to understand that what should be my API. How should I design my API? I got that one extra column I should put into the user database,
FS unifier.
like
Yes.
user table. Yeah, FS
Unifier.
unifier for login. But when I am designing the verbs like get, like post, all the things, then I need to validate that user is logged in or not.
Yeah.
So then the in the body I can pass the email and password. But what will be, so how I will set the token, and what will be the response body?
So what you are
Like
saying is that the
how
user has already logged in, or you are trying to log the user
No,
in.
I'm no, yes, I am asking about both. Like user wants to log in and like register and log in both. I'm asking.
See,
Like
if you are
what should be
using
the
Flask security, if you are using Flask security, if you are able to configure it the way it is expected to be, what you need to do is you need to make a post request to this endpoint that I have just sent in the chat /login and the query parameter of include auth token. You have to make a post request
okay,
to this endpoint and you have to send the email and the password in the request body. If both of those matches, then the response that comes back gives you uh, the authentication token. So you
okay.
can just
Response
find out what the
the
structure.
response will be
In the response, you will
authentication
get the
token.
authentication token back.
Okay. And sir, how can I retrieve the first name, last name, like all the user information
For
I
that,
need?
you need to
So
create
how
an
can?
endpoint in your application.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
API must
And
have an
in that,
endpoint that should give you all of such details.
okay, okay. So that will be, I should like return that from the API endpoint.
You mean the user details?
Yes, yes. User detail. I should return from the API endpoint.
Yeah, so you have to define a manual endpoint by yourself. Correct. Yeah, you will have to return it.
Okay, okay. So it is mostly the same with the MAD1 API. Just FS unifier, that will be an additional column, and just the this /login include auth token. This will be additional endpoint.
This is basically an endpoint that you don't need to implement yourself. This is something that Flask security offers you by default if you have configured it correctly. You
Okay,
don't need to
okay,
implement this endpoint. This already
and
comes.
okay. And can you summarize that? What are the modifications I should do with the like MAD1 API?
I'm not sure how was your Mat1 API, so I won't be able to comment.
Like basic API, just a login endpoint, and there I was like putting a request, and as a response I was sending the
You
JSON.
don't need a login endpoint this time if you are using Flask security. As I said, there is a implicit endpoint that you can make use of this /login. So you don't need to define any endpoint explicitly for logging the user in. So what you should be having endpoints for the operations like CRUD operations for whatever the entity is. So the current project is quantified self application. So you should be having 4 endpoints for means CRUD endpoint for tracker, CRUD endpoint for log. Like you mentioned, if you need to fetch the user details, so you should have an endpoint for that. You should probably have some endpoint for triggering the backend job like export, import, or probably sending out emails, etc., etc.
Okay, okay, okay. So this login question mark include auth token. This endpoint will only validate the user.
No, it will
This
give you
will
a token
authenticate the
only.
user. Yeah,
Yes,
it will
yes.
just help
This
you
will
to
only
logging in.
Okay, but this will not return the user details.
No, this will just give you the authentication.
Okay,
And this question
okay.
has been this question has been discussed on discourse. If you want to like implement the login endpoint by yourself, you can create an endpoint which validates the user and gives you the and returns the authentication token. And if you want, you can like return some more data like user information, and this has been discussed in on the discourse. You can go and check
Okay,
that.
sir. I will check
Yeah.
that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
I
after
will check
that, once you have the authentication token, you can include it, and you can include that authentication token in authentication token header, and you can send the request, and in the server you will get, I mean, you will have a access of current user proxy, and using that current user proxy, your application will know which user is logged in, I mean which user has sent the request. You just have to, when you are making a request, you just have to make one change inside the header. You add an authentication token header, and the value of the authentication token header will be that authentication token.
Okay, but for the first time, that token will not be there.
Yeah, for the first time, that's why you are sending a request to the login endpoint to authenticate the user
Okay.
and give the authentication token.
Okay. Okay.
And for the subsequent request, you are going to like include that authentication token with the request.
And have to store the authentication token in the local storage.
Yeah, local
Okay.
storage or session storage, whatever storage mechanism you want to use.
Okay. 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 Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, sir. So the user and tracker, that will be having many-to-many relationship. One user can have many trackers. All trackers we have to support. And even tracker-wise, we should be able to find users. Is it expected?
Tracker-wise user, I don't know. I mean, why do you need?
Expected or not? No. Is it expected? Do we need to do that or not? It is expected in the project.
If you are able to map the trackers to the user, if you have a relationship, you should be able to do that.
I mean, if you are using the SQL Alchemy, SQL Flask SQL Alchemy, you will define a relationship between the tracker and the user.
Yes, sir.
So from the user, you will be able to like find out what is the tracker, and from the tracker you will be able to figure out who is the user.
Yes. So one more thing, in that API application, you explained about the first create user something. So
Yeah.
will that be by default login? It should be admin? Or
No.
it is
Create user endpoint. You are saying now the post method.
yes,
Yeah, that is just to create a user. That is for sign up. Sign up. You are
very first time when we are going to go to the URL.
Yeah.
Then you explain some username. Hello?
I think
Some username password we provided, and first user login.
Can you come again? I mean, we lost you for.
It was disconnected, so yeah. First user login is expected or not? By default, first user login. Shall we provide some username password? In the API application, you've shown that actually.
Yeah, actually, what I am trying to say that if user is not available in the database, so the first thing you do, you sign up the user.
Okay.
And
that
then,
will automatically
once the user is there, then only you can log into the system.
Okay. Fine, sir. Good.
Chandrasekhar, I seen your discourse forum. Okay, when you are activating the virtual environment, you have to use .benv because you have created environment that is .benv and you are activating by benv. You just put dot, it will work.
Actually, that was created using that local underscore setup.sh file, sh file. The sir has provided now. So in his code, he has not used the dot. Later on, change to the dot as well, but in both cases, that is not working.
Yeah, you're audible. But in whatever screenshot you are putting, if you see the environment when it is getting activated, it is showing .benv, and the next call which screenshot you've given for the local run.sh, you are just putting benv. I got the same issue and I just put it the dot and it was working.
So you are able to run that file?
Yeah, I'm able to run it. And also you need to check this, sir, given the if condition, where he is put it the dot or not.
Okay, I will check. Can you please share your email? Can I reach you in case if I get a problem?
Okay, let me put it. Try this one.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one question related to your rules. Okay, in the rules, it is written that you cannot do any copy paste. Okay, so the copy paste means that entire program or entire application should not be copy pasted, because some of the codes whatever you are teaching or Tejas sir has teach, that we can able to do in our programs, right? Or nothing can be copied.
You can probably take a few code snippets. That is okay. Small code snippets, they are completely fine. Of course.
Yeah, like for
When
example,
we write application, we don't write each and every character of code by us.
yeah, right, because some of the like fetch function which Naren has shown is very good, that he cover everything, that all the catch function, JSON, network error, everything is there. So if you use it, then it is very become too easy to call our APIs and all it will capture. For example, the Celery application which you have shown in the periodic and all, that are actually you can just copy and it will automatically work. So that part we can do, right?
Yeah, sure. You can.
Okay.
Small code snippets you can take.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any other questions?
Sir, I wanted to know one question. The sample codes which are provided on the documentation side, if we use them as it is.
Sorry, which sample code?
Hello?
Which sample code you are referring to?
Some sample codes, suppose a class security related, some sample codes are provided on the documentation itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we use if we copy and paste and use it in our application, will that
that's what I'm saying. You can.
Plagiarism?
That's what I'm saying.
You
can use a few. You can use small code snippets. That is okay.
Okay. So on large scale, you are going to check for the plagiarism.
From last year, this is a separate project in itself.
No, plagiarism means you are checking for the large extent of the code to be copy pasted. Is it like that? Okay. Fine, sir. That's only. Thank you.
So what I would suggest you is to don't try to beat the plagiarism checker, because it is almost difficult to find out all the possible combinations through which you can just get rid of it. Just try to code by yourself. If you are doing so, there is a high probability that there is nothing going to happen in your case.
Yeah, we are not going to do any copy. Yeah, we will try. Full code should be clean and fresh.
Yeah, exactly. It's always fine means you take small code snippets from here and there. Of course, you can refer to documentations as well. But yeah, as far as you are able to explain them, that's completely fine.
No, you have teach in good live session, very good. So we can now at least we can cover everything, including cache, Celery, Redis cache, all things are clear. Thank you for that.
Okay, yeah. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, regarding the session in upcoming week, that will be updated later, correct?
Yeah, that I'll get it done.
Please.
I'll see, yeah, which day suits the best, probably in the next week. So the NSEM exam is on 7th of August, right?
Yes.
So you want this session especially for NSEM revision, right?
Quiz to questions discussion and NSEM revision.
Yeah, ultimately NSEM revision. Okay. Yeah, sure. We can do it someday next week. Or this week itself, well, it's okay. We'll keep it next week.
Next week only. I mean, there is OPP exam also.
Okay, you have it on Sunday. Okay.
So if you are planning that session, kindly keep it before Thursday if possible. Yes, it would be helpful for the revision in next 2-3 days.
I guess the same time should work then, the next week also.
Okay.
I think Wednesday this time is will be okay, so that we
Yeah.
have whatever doubts we can collect and we can ask.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so that would be a request as well. So it would be better if you can just collate all of your doubts so that we don't need to look here and there in the session. You just come prepared with all of the questions that you have. All right, yeah, so we'll do it next week. I guess on the same day. I'll just confirm it, not sure, but most probably we'll do it at Wednesday only at 4 p.m. This time suits the best. Okay, so I guess there are no more queries. It should be a good time to close this session then.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the session, sir.
Thanks for joining with us. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.